People always think longevity is about adding years to your life. Vitamins, diets, biohacks. As if living longer were a technical problem to solve. But after 75 years on this planet, after teaching thousands of students, burying friends I assumed would outlive me, and watching brilliant people burn themselves out, I've learned something uncomfortable. Longevity isn't about how hard you try to live longer. It's about how gently you live now. Some people die young at 90. Some live fully at 60. The difference isn't luck, it's patterns. Today, I want to share 10 lessons about longevity, not from trends, not from influencers, but from a long life actually lived. And I should warn you, none of them are exciting, but all of them work. I became a professor in my early 30s, young, ambitious, certain I had time to sleep later, time to repair relationships later, time to slow down later. For decades, I studied human behavior, decision-making, stress, and aging. But knowledge, I discovered, does not equal wisdom. Wisdom arrives through consequence. I watched colleagues pride themselves on exhaustion. I watched marriages collapse quietly behind successful careers. I watched men who never rested suddenly stop. Heart attacks, strokes, bodies that simply refused to continue. And I should warn you, none of them are exciting. The people who lived longest were rarely the loudest, richest, or most impressive. They were the ones who knew when to stop. One afternoon in my late 40s, I collapsed in my office. Not dramatically, not heroically, just quietly. My body finally collected the debt I'd been postponing. That moment changed everything. Longevity stopped being theoretical. It became personal. What follows are not rules. They are patterns I've seen repeat over and over, in people who reached old age with clarity, dignity, and peace. Hello, thoughtful listener. Today, let's discuss the quiet art of longevity. Tip 1. Protect your energy like it's non-renewable. When you're young, energy feels infinite. You assume tomorrow will refill whatever today empties. But it is the true currency. The longest living people I've known were not busy. They were selective. They understood that exhaustion is caused by misalignment. Boundaries, once learned, return energy faster than any vacation. Tip 2. Move daily, but never violently. The body was not designed for intensity. It was designed for consistency. Move in ways that can be repeated 10 years from now. Longevity favors people who befriend their bodies, not those who dominate them. Tip 3. Eat to support tomorrow. The longest living people did not obsess over food. They respected it. They stopped before they were full. Sleep is not laziness. It is biological work. Tip 4. Sleep is structural. It is when the body repairs the day. Longevity belongs to those who go to bed when tired, not when finished. Protect it before everything collapses. Tip 5. Stress is the most underrated killer. The longest living people were not stress-free. They were stress-literate. Longevity is about recovering from stress, quickly and repeatedly. Live well, thoughtful listener. Tip 6. Loneliness is more dangerous than poor diet. I've seen this repeatedly, and it still surprises people when I say it out loud. Some individuals did everything right. They exercised, they ate carefully, they avoided sugar and salt and excess. And yet, they faded quickly. Others had mediocre habits. They enjoyed dessert. They skipped workouts. They weren't impressive on paper, but they had people, and they lived longer. Longevity is not only biological, it is relational. Someone must know your story. Someone must recognize your voice. Someone must notice when you don't show up. Isolation doesn't just make you sad, it alters the body. The immune system weakens, inflammation increases, recovery slows. The body was not designed to live alone for long periods of time. The longest living people were surrounded not by crowds, but by familiarity. People who knew their habits, their moods, their rhythms. A neighbor who checked in, a friend who expected a call, a reason to sit at a table with another human being. Health begins in the body. Longevity is protected by connection. Tip 7. Have a reason to wake up. Retirement doesn't shorten life. Aimlessness does. I've watched this happen more times than I can count. People worked hard for decades. They planned carefully. They reached the moment they were told would finally bring peace. And then, slowly, something faded. Not their strength, not their intelligence, their direction. The longest living people I've known always had a reason to wake up, and it was rarely impressive to anyone else. A garden that needed attention, a student who still asked questions, a routine that gave shape to the morning, a curiosity that refused to go quiet. Purpose does not need to be grand, it needs to be consistent. When people lose their reason to wake up, the days begin to blur. Mornings lose urgency, the future feels optional, and when the future feels optional, the body listens. Longevity belongs to those who remain engaged with life, not busy, not ambitious, but interested. Interest keeps the mind awake. Responsibility keeps the body moving. The people who lived longest did not chase meaning. They maintained it. They showed up for something small, every day, and let that be enough. You don't need a legacy. You need something that expects you tomorrow. Because having a reason to wake up isn't about productivity. It's about staying in conversation with life. Tip 8. Let go, often and early. Resentment is heavy, and the body carries it faithfully. It settles into the shoulders. It tightens the jaw. It keeps the breath shallow long after the moment has passed. People who live long forgive faster, not because they are saints, but because bitterness is exhausting. Holding on requires effort. Replaying the past consumes energy. Nursing old wounds keeps the nervous system alert in a world that no longer needs defense. I've seen people age faster from anger than from illness. They slept poorly. Their bodies stayed tense. Their minds never rested. Peace is lighter than pride, and lighter things are easier to carry for decades. The longest living people learned to release early. Arguments that didn't matter, expectations that were never going to be met, versions of themselves that no longer fit. They understood that not everything needs closure. Some things only need distance. Some lessons only need acceptance. Letting go is not forgetting. It is choosing not to relive what already cost you enough. Longevity favors those who travel light, emotionally, mentally, and quietly. Because the body remembers everything you refuse to release, and it repays that weight with time. Tip 9. Avoid extremes. In everything. Extreme diets, extreme work, extreme opinions. Extremes feel powerful at the beginning. They promise quick change. They offer certainty in a complicated world. But extremes always demand payment. The body pays with fatigue. The mind pays with rigidity. Relationships pay with distance. Longevity lives in moderation. The longest living people I've known were rarely intense. They did not swing wildly between restriction and indulgence, obsession and neglect, certainty and outrage. They chose the middle, again and again. They ate well, but not perfectly. They worked steadily, but not endlessly. They held opinions, but left room for doubt. Balance is boring. It doesn't create dramatic stories. It doesn't impress strangers. But boring is sustainable. The body prefers predictability. The nervous system prefers rhythm. The mind prefers room to adjust. Extremes exhaust systems. Moderation preserves them. What survives decades is not passion. It is repeatability. The people who lived longest understood this quietly. They didn't chase intensity. They avoided collapse. And in doing so, they lasted. Tip 10. Accept aging instead of fighting it. The people who age best do not chase youth. They deepen presence. They understand that youth is not something you can recover and not something you need to. Instead of fighting time, they learn to move with it. They stop trying to prove relevance and start embodying calm. Calm becomes their authority, not speed, not volume, not urgency. I've watched people exhaust themselves trying to remain impressive, trying to keep up, trying to convince the world they are still needed. And I've watched others slow down and somehow become more valuable. They listen more than they speak. They choose words carefully. They waste less energy on performance. Resistance ages you faster than time. Fighting what is unavoidable creates friction, and friction wears systems down. Every decade asks for a different kind of strength. The people who age well answer that request early. They adjust expectations without resentment. They let go of roles that no longer fit. They make room for what the current season allows. They don't disappear, they settle. And in that settling, something remarkable happens. Their presence becomes steadier, their judgment becomes clearer, their silence becomes meaningful. They no longer need to be everywhere. They no longer need to be loud. They no longer need to be first. They become grounded. Aging, when accepted, is not loss, it is refinement. The longest living people understood this quietly. They stopped chasing what time was taking and started protecting what time was revealing. At 75, I don't wish I had lived louder. I wish I had lived softer sooner. Not quieter in voice, but quieter in resistance. Quieter in urgency. Quieter in the need to prove something to people who were never watching closely. For a long time, I thought life was something to be conquered. That meaning came from effort. That rest had to be earned. Old age teaches you something different. Longevity is not about extending life at all costs. It is about arriving at old age with something intact. Your mind, your relationships, your sense of self. Many people live a long time but arrive exhausted, disconnected, hardened. They protected their schedules but not their nervous systems. They protected their image but not their peace. The people who age best learn early that life is not a sprint you win. It is a rhythm you learn. If you are listening to this now, you are earlier than you think. You don't need to change everything. You don't need a dramatic reinvention. You don't need to fix your entire life in one season. Just stop abusing what you cannot replace. Your body is not renewable. Your time does not replenish. Your peace, once broken too often, takes longer to return. Most regrets I've heard in old age are not about failure. They are about delay. Delay in resting. Delay in forgiving. Delay in choosing what mattered over what impressed. People don't wish they had done more. They wish they had listened sooner. Sooner to fatigue, sooner to intuition, sooner to the quiet voice that said, "This is enough." Life does not reward constant urgency. It charges interest for it, and the bill always arrives later. When energy is limited, when time becomes precious in a way youth cannot imagine. If there is one advantage to growing old, it is clarity. Clarity about what was noise, clarity about what was necessary, clarity about what was never worth the cost. And that clarity is available to you now, if you're willing to slow down enough to hear it. You just need to live well for as long as you're here. That means choosing depth over speed, consistency over intensity, peace over performance. Thank you for listening. If this resonated with you, subscribe to Questions for My Elders, where long life speaks quietly and wisdom doesn't rush. And remember this, above all else, a good life is not measured by how much you endured, but by how gently you learned to live.
I must be going now.